Okay, this is question 29e of the CSSA paper, trial that is, general maths. An equation worth 3 marks, slide it across, and as far as I'm concerned, that should be 3 marks that everyone gets because with solving equations and any sort of algebra work, it's a basic process. Each line of working, and this is what you all need to remember, each line of working should be aiming to make the problem easier, not more complicated, which I've seen people do. First thing you need to do with this equation, obviously you need to get y on its own, but that's the ultimate result. But what you've got to do is look at it and say, what is making this thing complicated? And clearly, it's the fractions. So your first protocol, always, whenever you've got fractions in an equation, is to eliminate the fraction, just to make the equation look easier to work with. Not only look easier to work with, but actually make it easier to work with. So the question you ask yourself is, how do I eliminate the 3 and the 4, those two denominators? And since the denominator is always connected to the numerators by division, what you've got to do is find a number that you can multiply throughout that will eliminate those denominators in one swoop. So what you're looking for is the lowest common multiple between 3 and 4. And in this case, it's 12. So what you do is you multiply both sides by the 12. That's everything in the equation by 12. If you only do one side, or you do part of one side, you're basically changing the balance of the equation. Therefore, since you've changed the equation, you're going to get it wrong. So when you multiply this left-hand side by 12, that 3 cancels out with the 12, and you're left with 4 lots of that numerator. 15 minus y equals. Now, it's 12 lots of everything in this bracket, and the big mistake people make is they forget to multiply the 12 with this loose constant, which is on the right-hand side also. So it's 12 times 10. Do not forget that. 120 minus. Now, same as before, how many 4s go into 12? 3, so that cancels out, and you're left with 3 lots of the 50 plus 2y. Notice I've put brackets around that. Really important, because looking ahead, you're multiplying everything on this side by that negative. So it's not just negative 3 times 50, it's going to be negative 3 times the positive 2y in the next step. So another tip there is make sure when if you've got a situation like this where you've got a loose constant and you've got this fraction here, that if you're multiplying the leftover numerator by another number, that you have that numerator in brackets. It just helps you to avoid making silly mistakes. So straight away, in one swoop, I've made this question easier because I have no more fractions. I just have one straight line, and that's what I'm aiming for. Just have one straight line that I can work with and not get tangled up with denominators and all the rest of it. The next problem we got, which is not much of a problem really, are these brackets. We need to eliminate those brackets, and that's very straightforward. You just multiply whatever constant you got outside the brackets to everything inside the brackets. So 4 times 15, 60, 4 times negative y minus 4y equals 120. Just drops down because it's just a loose constant. Now it's negative 3 times 50, which makes negative 150. And here is the mistake. It's a perennial mistake made from year 7 onwards, and it's just careless. It's just rushing your work, not concentrating on what you're doing. But here you got the classic: a negative times a positive will give you a negative answer. So it's negative 3 times positive 2y, which makes negative 6y. The amount of times I see people lose marks because they just drop that positive and not take into consideration what you're multiplying it by, therefore affecting the sign there, is ridiculous. So can you please be careful, don't rush your work, make sure you're looking at the signs, look at what you're multiplying, and get the basics right, because like I say, these 3 marks are easy. They should be in the bag because it's just a step-by-step process. Once again, my next step now, I've made the question easier. I've got no fractions, I've got no brackets. It still looks a little bit long-winded, but what I can do is I can notice over here I can collect like terms just to condense the equation a little bit. So if I just do that, 60 minus 4y equals 120 minus 150 is minus 30 minus 6y. Okay, notice getting easier again. Okay, I've got y's on both sides. What I want ultimately is to get y's on one side, and you could either plus 4y to both sides or plus 6y to both sides. It doesn't matter. But what I like to do, it's just a personal preference, is I look to see how I could cancel one of the y's from one side to leave me with a positive y on the other. Just makes it easier in the final process of division, when I don't have to worry about dividing by a negative. But like I say, it doesn't matter which way you do it. In this example, I'm going to plus 6y to both sides because I know it cancels out here, but on this side, what happens is I've got a positive 2y. And like I say, it doesn't matter if you went the other way, you'd still get to the right answer. It just means you have something else to think about. So 60 plus 2y equals negative 30. So minus 60 to both sides now. So I've got 2y equals negative 90. Divide by 2. Divide by 2 to get y on its own. So y equals negative 45. Okay. And just for the disbelievers, just to show you, I've got a bit of time here. So if I decided to, I'll just rewrite this bit, 60, and you don't have to do it twice, obviously, in the exam. I'm just showing you this for your benefit. If I decided to plus 4y to both sides, there's no drama really. It's only that I get 60 equals negative 30 minus 2y. So then plus 30 to both sides. So I'm left with 90 equals negative 2y. And the only thing I need to remember here is I'm dividing by negative 2, not 2. And I've got to remember, once again, a positive divided by a negative makes a negative. So this cancels out here. So left with y equals negative 45. Okay, either way is fine. I just like to think about it in this way. It gives me something less to think about when I'm dividing at the end, but it doesn't matter. So please, boys, do not lose marks with this type of question, because I believe they are easy questions to get marks on. Solving equations.